Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So you're watching footage shot with the Google 6 Pro here and the Vivo X70 Pro Plus here. So yes, we are doing a camera shootout, and this one's a little bit unique because I am in Thailand right now, Bangkok, Thailand. So both of these phones have the same image sensor. It's a Samsung ISOCELL GN1 sensor with a relatively large 1/1.3 inch image sensor. So that means a larger image sensor helps it takes in a lot of light and also have a shallower depth of field, so whenever you take pictures of something up close, you'll get creamy natural bokeh. Okay, so now you're watching ultra wide camera footage from both phones. Now the ultra wide camera hardware is different because the X70 Pro Plus has a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that's built on top of gimbal stabilization, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro has a standard 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and the Pixel 6 Pro's ultra wide is a lot tighter framing, so you should see more on a Vivo X70 Pro Plus right now. And let's see if that gimbal really makes a difference. I'm just gonna run. Not sure if that really works. It's a low light situation right now. Okay, now as for zoom lens, the Pixel 6 Pro has a 48 megapixel periscope zoom lens that can do 4 times optic zoom, whereas the Vivo X70 Pro Plus has 2 zoom lens, but its periscope zoom lens is an 8 megapixel lens that can do 5 times optical zoom. So on paper, 5 times optical zoom should beat the 4 times optical zoom, right? But because the Pixel periscope zoom lens has more pixels to play with, 48 megapixel, it bends down to 12 megapixel shots. So I find that for still photos, the Pixel's periscope beats Vivo's periscope like 7-8 times out of 10. And in video, it's no contest, because when you're filming video and you zoom to 4x or beyond, you're using the periscope zoom lens on the Pixel. But for some reason, Vivo does not film video with the periscope zoom camera at all. So if you're filming a video and you zoom to 5x, it's still completely digital zoom, so the footage looks pretty bad. Now the silver lining for Vivo is that it has a second zoom lens, a 2 times telephoto zoom lens, a 12 megapixel lens. So that means if you are just doing 2 times zoom photos, the Vivo X70 Pro Plus will beat the Google Pixel 6 Pro. But ultimately the zoom lens, it's a peripheral lens. The test I'm most excited for is the main camera test, the 50 megapixel Samsung GN1 sensor. Now same image sensor, but different philosophy. Vivo has a faster aperture, f1.6 to the Pixel's f1.9. And each of these phones have its own separate brain to handle all the visuals captured by the sensor. So on the Google Pixel 6, handling all the image signal processing is the Google Tensor. This is Google's own custom built SoC. Now the Vivo X70 Pro Plus has a custom chip too, is the V1, but this is only an ISP, an image signal processor. The main SoC here is still the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 Plus. But anyway, enough talk, let's go shooting. But I also took a bunch of photos during the day, so we'll examine those first. So right off the bat, you'll see a couple of trends. Is that the Google Pixel 6 Pro has more muted colors, especially when it comes to reds and blues, compared to the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. You know, Google's colors are more natural. It's just Vivo completely dials up the contrast on reds, particularly in this pair of Air Jordans here. But you notice there's like really natural creamy bokeh around the shoes, right? This is not portrait mode. This is just point and shoot 1x photo. It's just that, again, both of these cameras put these really natural creamy bokeh. Now even though Vivo's color looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to my eye, if you actually zoom in and pixel peep on a larger monitor, like I would say 8 times out of 10, the Google Pixel shot is a little bit more detailed and sharp, at least for daytime photos. Now in these high contrast shots in which I'm shooting against backlight on purpose, so half the scene is like drenched in shadow and half is pretty well lit, you can see that both phones handle contrast really well. But the Vivo tends to brighten up shadows a little bit more. Okay, so right now we're on a pretty dark street. Let's test really low light photography. So, I mean, this camera has really strong low light capability. Trust me, in real life, this is really dark. In real life, it kind of looks like this. Yeah, this is how it looks to my eyes. So we'll start with the Google Pixel 6 Pro. So obviously night mode is kicking in, and Google's night mode takes a long time, man. And now we have the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. So you see, Vivo also turn on night mode, but is a much shorter night mode. Okay, so now both of these are 4K footage, 4K 30. Okay, so I am in Chinatown right now, and you're watching selfie camera footage. My skin tone looks much more natural on the Pixel. On the Vivo, I look very white. Let's see how exposure is behind me. Yeah, and Vivo's also blowing out the lights above me. At least so far from what I can see. Okay, main camera footage with the Google Pixel 6 Pro and the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. So because the Google Pixel only has one zoom lens, it's a 4x zoom, that's too far of a zoom for portrait. So when you switch to portrait mode, you're actually still shooting with the main camera only, except Google will punch in a little bit because it knows that standard 1x is a little bit too wide. So with portraits, it will punch in a little bit, but this is still shooting with that 50 megapixel main camera. So the result is an image that's really sharp because it is shooting with that 50 megapixel sensor. And now we have the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, because the Vivo X70 Pro Plus actually has a dedicated 2x telephoto zoom lens. So when you're capturing portraits, it will actually default to that telephoto zoom. So we'll capture a portrait here. So we can see that the X70 Pro Plus's portrait is closer than the Google Pixels because it's a 2x zoom, but it is not as detailed as the Pixels. Okay, so now we're testing the ultra-wide angle camera. The first thing you're going to notice is that the Pixel's ultra-wide is just not that wide. It has a field of view of only 114 degrees compared to the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, which has like 120 plus degree. You know, the Pixel's ultra-wide almost doesn't feel like an ultra-wide. But it's not just that. Vivo's ultra-wide camera hardware is just flat out better than Google's ultra-wide camera hardware, because this is a 48 megapixel sensor that shoots pixel bin 12 megapixel shots. So when you're pixel binning, you're combining 4 pixels worth of data into one. So even though both of these ultra-wide shots are 12 megapixels, like the final result, Vivo's shot just has more image information. And then you throw in the gimbal stabilization and the Zeiss T coding. This is just a better ultra-wide camera compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. Okay, now as for selfie camera, the Pixel has an 11 megapixel f2.2 selfie, while Vivo has a 32 megapixel f2.5 selfie. So again, the Vivo selfie camera is a little bit more pixel dense, but they don't really matter to me. Like I said, I don't exactly have a face for selfies. I don't like taking selfies at all, but just for the sake of testing, I will take some for you right now anyway and show you more samples I've taken. As usual, Vivo, because it's a Chinese brand, it will apply heavy skin whitening to brighten up my skin. And I don't really like that because there's nothing wrong with darker skin, okay? The notion that like light skin is good, dark skin is bad is terrible. I hate it, and we need to push back against the Chinese brands. You guys need to do better. We don't need the skin brightening filter BS. So if I have to pick a winner, I would say I prefer a Pixel selfie, just by virtue of the fact that it presents my skin tone naturally. Okay, so now I guess the question is, which camera phone is better? I think the answer is not so straightforward. We have to break everything down lens by lens. If we're going with the main camera, I think I prefer images captured by the Vivo X70 Pro Plus like 7 times out of 10 compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. I like that colors pop a little bit more, and because the Vivo's main camera has a faster aperture, it takes in more light. So that means at night, it does not rely on night mode as much. But then conversely, that main camera, when you're talking about shooting video, I think video footage look a little bit better on the Google Pixel 6 Pro. And on top of that, the Pixel camera, in the middle of filming, you can switch between lenses. You cannot do that with the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. But when it comes to the ultra-wide lens, X70 Pro Plus wins clearly because it has a higher megapixel sensor. So that means there's more pixels to play with, more image information. So when you're filming in low light conditions, I think the X70 Pro Plus's ultra-wide video should look a little bit better, as well as photos. On top of that, Vivo's ultra-wide is built on top of a gimbal, so there's just better stabilization. Once again, if I run, you should be able to see a difference. If I jump up here. Now as for the zoom lenses, even though the Vivo X70 Pro Plus has 2 zoom lenses, I think the Pixel 6 Pro consistently produce better looking, sharper zoom images. So ultimately, I think the Vivo X70 Pro Plus has a little bit better camera hardware overall. It's a more technically capable system. But the Google Pixel 6 Pro's camera is more than the sum of its parts, because Google has always been about software, and the Pixel 6 Pro just has very fun software modes. For example, Magic Eraser, which allows you to digitally remove people from background or foreground of shots. Now, it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it's quite magical. I also like Action Pan, which again, you just point and shoot at something and it'll create this artificial motion blur to make it look like that subject is moving way faster than he or she or they are actually moving. So these are modes that I know you can probably get with a third-party app, but it's fun that Google built them right into the system. And it's all processed on device. You don't need internet for any of that. So I think that's pretty cool. Ultimately, I think the X70 Pro Plus is a more capable system, but the Pixel 6 Pro camera is more fun to play with. I know this isn't as clear-cut an answer as you guys would have liked. That's the state of smartphone cameras these days. Every brand makes a really good camera. It's just down to nitpicking and personal preferences. But I think, at least for me personally, I think the X70 Pro Plus is the best camera of the year. So anyway, that's about it for this video. I'm sweating like hell because it's hot as hell here in Thailand, so I need to go and get some water. I think you guys may notice that when I film these videos, like these real world videos, I'm always sweating and out of breath because I have to carry a lot of gear and I'm running around town. It's quite difficult to shoot. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to my channel because these videos are a lot of work. And also follow me on Instagram at Ben's Gadget Reviews if you guys like. So that's about it for this video. Take care, stay healthy, and I'll have more coming up.